all for joining so much. We really appreciate you spending your evening with us. We're getting kind of caught up here with folks, so we just want to go over how we're going to be spending our time today. So before we kick it off, I just want to let you know that we'll be doing a quick welcome with our Chief Sustainability Officer, Eden Brookman, and then I'll be going over more project context and the status of the project, where we are at with it. And then we'll spend the majority of our time together discussing the key learnings and discussion of the report itself, with the 3 topics of stormwater, gray water, and water and agriculture. And then we'll come back together and go over the next steps in closing. And right now, I'd like to hand it off to my manager and CSO, or Chief Sustainability Officer, Eden Brookman. It's a pleasure to have her here with us tonight, and she's going to be opening up for us with opening comments. I'll hand it over to you, Eden.
Thank you, Elise, and welcome everyone. It is such a treat to be with you tonight. As Elise mentioned, I'm Eden Brookman, the Chief Sustainability Officer for the county, leading the Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice, also known as OSEJ. We are a relatively new office, rooted in the belief that together we can co-create a San Diego region that is in ecological harmony, where community is celebrated and dedicated to the benefit of every and all. OSEJ intentionally and actively works alongside communities that have been disproportionately impacted by systemic and institutional inequities and environmental burdens. We do this by establishing meaningful connections, deeply listening, and elevating community strengths as we collaboratively steward sustainability solutions, focusing on both regional initiatives and county operations. And this effort that you are contributing to tonight with your presence and participation is just one example of how regional initiatives and county operations merge. Thank you for joining us to take part in this learning journey to assess drought impacts and water use best practices, and to share with the county team your lived and observed experiences when it comes to water. I hope that many of you have taken the opportunity to connect with Elise, Stephanie, and our colleagues at the Department of Public Works, our consultants at Geosyntec, and the rest of the team over the last 10 months or so, whether through our opening assembly, the deep dive lunch and learns, the dozens of interviews they conducted, or the surveys and sessions led by our partners' Climate Action Campaign and Urban Collaborative Project. We appreciate your insights and look forward to our conversations this evening, as well as the many that will no doubt follow about water and other sustainability topics in the weeks and months to come. Again, thank you for making this time with us a priority in your day. Elise, back to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Eden. Really appreciate those thoughts and appreciate having you here with us tonight. Okay, so now back to me. I'm going to give everyone a little more background detail about the objective of the overall effort, and just a reminder of the origins of it and what we're going to be doing next. So overall, this is a board directive item. In September of 2022, the County San Diego Board of Supervisors directed staff to take a more proactive regional approach to address the drought crisis through drought management and water sustainability practices. It also aligns with how California recognizes the human right to water, which is also known as Assembly Bill 685. So as an essential resource to life, as you all may be very aware and can relate to this, water affects all life in every area. Therefore, this project has been very collaborative, with equity at the center of this project. This also includes a binational partnership with Imperial County and tribal communities. I've had a wonderful pleasure of working with an amazing team to make this happen, as well as all of our communities who have participated up to this point. So we really appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. So part of the collaboration we've had is with OSEJ, as Eden mentioned, that's Office of Sustainability and Environmental Justice, who's leading this effort, alongside with DPW, or the county's Department of Public Works. We have our amazing consulting teams as Geosyntec consultants and LaSAR development consultants with us as well. Now I want to give you more of a visual of the focus areas that are included in this assessment. Overall, this collaborative effort has comprised of the whole region that includes San Diego County, Imperial County, binational cities, and tribal nations. So the report itself highlights best practices in the region and beyond, and water sustainability strategies, so we can learn from the experience of our neighbors. However, the majority of the scope has been occurring within the San Diego County region itself. The project's goal is to holistically assess what type of systems or procedures may be in place for drought response and other water supply strategies in the areas of Imperial County and the border cities. So right now I want to give you a little more context of what is studied in the report overall. And this would be what the board directed us to do as far as what was included in the board letter itself. So we've categorized into 3 areas. If you'll look at these buckets, we have stormwater, gray water, and also water and agriculture. The first one for stormwater includes stormwater capture and reuse at county parks and facilities, water diversion capture and reuse on county roads and highways. And for the gray water within buildings, that's researching what other jurisdictions are doing with gray water reuse. It's mostly focused on affordable housing and to integrate and install stormwater capture and reuse systems. Lastly, for water and agriculture, this is where we'll be looking at identifying risks, opportunities, and incentives for agriculture projects. I want to give a quick rundown of what each of these items are by definition, just to give a little more background. So when we think about stormwater, the definition loosely is more focused on when we install new impervious surfaces like roofs, homes, roads, or patios. We remove the ground's natural ability to infiltrate rainwater into the soil. And so this infiltration is good for the soil and helps refill groundwater reserves. With new developments, when rainwater falls on roofs and streets, it goes into the storm drain. Capturing rainwater is helpful in protecting beaches, rivers, and water quality in general. In San Diego, water's storm drains go directly to the ocean and it does not get treated. So as rainwater runs off from roofs and streets, it picks up pollutants, including car oil and bacteria and pesticides. So those pollutants go into the ocean and lead to beach closures and rainstorms, which you might be familiar with. So by capturing rainwater runoff before it goes to the street, you're capturing it before it picks up any pollutants or any debris that may be in the street from storm drains. Gray water means untreated wastewater that has not been contaminated by a toilet discharge or infection, or contaminated or unhealthy bodily waste. And examples of gray water include wastewater from bathtubs, showers, clothing and washing machines, and laundry tubs, but it does not include wastewater from kitchen sinks or dishwater. Gray water is essentially water that we use on a daily basis in our homes and businesses that does not come into contact with potentially harmful contaminants such as food waste or toilet discharges. Gray water includes wastewater from sources like showers and bathroom sinks, and it can be used for various purposes. Lastly, for agriculture, water used for agriculture purposes include a few different sources in our region. So there are different areas of the resources that support agricultural production. And a lot of our water comes from the Colorado River and is the primary source for water in San Diego County, Imperial County, and Mexico. Imported water also comes from the State Water Project. San Diego County also has other local supplies, including recycled water, desalinated ocean water, and groundwater. And as a background information, Eastern San Diego County, tribal nations, and portions of Mexico also use local groundwater sources for agriculture. As I mentioned earlier, there's a big focus on equity within this overall effort. The proposed board recommendations from the board letter include a focus and alignment with California Water Supply Strategy, as well as the Human Right to Water, which was AB 685. So we received a lot of incredible feedback from all of you leading up to this point, because it's very essential to hear your feedback and collect your lived experiences and understand what water equity might mean to our communities. As you can see, water equity is a generalized term here. There's no official definition or no legal definition. So we're exploring that in the purpose of this overall assessment. As water equity is subjective and it can mean a lot of different things to different communities and stakeholders and members of our overall area in San Diego and our neighbors, you can see that there's quite a variety of responses that we've received. So it's really exciting right now to share with you some of these responses you can see on the screen itself here. So as I mentioned, it can mean a lot of different things to different folks, but we do have a few here to share where a lot of folks have been responding to what it means to them. And you can see that there are some commonalities, there's some unique differences. And overall, we're really happy to hear the overall exploration of what this means to our communities. And we want to continue hearing what that means throughout the remainder of this overall effort. So tying it in a little more, why are we all here tonight? So at this time, we've compiled the results of the first draft of the report, and we're really excited to share the next steps with you and give some high-level takeaways. This is a really important part of the phase of this effort because the insight and overall feedback from our communities is very essential. Well, as we prepare for public comment and also prepare for the board hearing in 2024, our goal is to gather stakeholder insight as much as possible and to hear your lived experiences and lift voices that are underserved communities. We really appreciate your time tonight and throughout the rest of this phase, and we want to keep you along each step of the way. So as a reminder, at this time, we're going to start going to our phase of learning the key takeaways from the report. And I'll explain a little bit how we're going to be spending this time together. So this will be the majority of our time spent together going over the 3 topics that are studied throughout the assessment. So that'll be including stormwater, gray water, and water and agriculture. For each of these segments, we will go over some highlights from the report itself, share some amazing stories from our community members who are making conservation and water a success, and we'll also have the opportunity after each of these segments to discuss your thoughts on the topic. And just to go over a few more things, we will be sharing some of the areas that were explored outside of the scope because there's a lot of really great intuitive and very exploratory things that are happening throughout the region and what's happening to our neighbors in Imperial and also to the south. So we'll be discussing some of those as well throughout the discussion. As a reminder, we'll have 15 minutes together during the discussion component, and we will be having that opportunity after each of these segments. So we ask that you hold your time hold your questions during that time until we have the discussion segment available, and I'll let you know when that becomes available and we'll be able to start discussing. We're really looking forward to that. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Stephanie Zen, who is a Senior Water Resource Manager with Geosyntec, and she has been a very key member of our project team, and she'll be sharing our first segment on stormwater. Stephanie, I'll hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Elise. Can you hear me okay? Great. Excellent introduction. And thank you so much. Really happy that you all are participating in this today and really looking forward to presenting on stormwater and some key findings, as well as having some open discussion after this. And so first, we're going to talk about this idea that came out of this effort over the past 10 months called the One Water Reuse Nexus. And so before we jump into what several maps I'm going to show you portray, Elise on a previous slide had a quote and something that really resonated with us from a San Diego water manager. And what we heard from this person was that, hey, we do a pretty good job in San Diego adapting to drought conditions, and we do a pretty good job managing water during drought. But what we need to improve upon is optimizing our infrastructure to capture more rain, to capture more stormwater when it does come, so we can save it for that next drought period. So that, like I said, really resonated with us and kind of guided us to looking at certain infrastructure systems that exist today that may benefit from being enhanced to capture and store more water when we need it. And so this first exhibit here shows reservoirs and lakes that exist primarily in San Diego County. So we have several of them here. And these are managed to store both imported water, as Elise mentioned, from the Colorado River, which is a primary water source from this area, and some local rainwater as well. So we wanted to identify where these reservoirs and these storage systems are, to identify where they are located within watersheds. Are there maybe potential opportunities where we can explore in the future and bringing more local water to these systems? Next slide, please. So another type of storage system is storing water underground, under our feet. And so these are called groundwater basins. And historically, what we've learned is that groundwater does not make up a significant or a large type of water supply throughout this entire region, but it is important to some communities and some homes and agricultural farms. So we wanted to look at it. We wanted to map out where these groundwater aquifers are located. Throughout California, there's newer requirements requirement called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, where certain jurisdictions are required to show sustainable management of aquifers. So making sure that we're not making the ground sink or leading to subsidence, and that the quality of our groundwater aquifers are protected and appropriate for the use of that water. So there is that regulation that exists. But what we identified, and what you can see here on the screen in purple, is that there's several public supply groundwater wells that exist outside of these groundwater aquifers. And so we wanted to identify if is the quality of these groundwater resources good? Are they managed in a way that's going to be supportive of the people that rely on them? And is there a way that we can utilize stormwater to recharge these groundwater basins and support these local supply wells? Next slide, please. And another really interesting thing that we identified throughout our research, and this is an image from a publication done by others, is that there's transboundary groundwater systems that exist between the United States and Mexico. And this is an image showing the hydrogeological units that exist between the US and Mexico. And we actually identified that there is a transboundary agreement between Arizona and Sonora to manage that system in a sustainable way. And so we're starting to think about, could a similar agreement exist between California and Mexico to manage that storage system sustainably, and maybe utilize stormwater to recharge those systems more purposefully? Next slide. And if you're local to San Diego, you're probably very familiar with the Pure Water San Diego regional water recycling system. So San Diego has definitely been a leader in using water more than once with their recycling systems. So we wanted to map out the areas where water recycling does occur. And so that's taking sewage and that will go to a wastewater treatment plant that could be retrofitted with technology and infrastructure to reuse that water more than once, and either send it to purple pipe for non-potable irrigation of our landscape, or to indirect potable reuse. And so we wanted to identify where these locations are. And what we've been seeing throughout Southern California is this movement towards capturing more stormwater and slowly metering it out to these regional water recycling systems to view stormwater more as a resource and tie it into our non-potable and potable water systems. So really, really exciting mapping exercises that we've been able to look at. And that all comes together on the next slide on, this theme, the One Water Reuse Nexus, and really optimizing our existing storage systems with our reservoirs and our groundwater basins, as well as our recycled water treatment plants, and seeing if there's ways to really optimize the capture of local stormwater to these existing infrastructure systems. Okay, next slide. And so that whole theme, the One Water Reuse Nexus, is really at a large spatial scale. We're looking at watersheds, we're looking at counties as a whole. And what is really great about this project is that the San Diego County has been really interested in looking at this within their county-owned lands and facilities, and identifying where they can view stormwater as a resource, whether that be collecting it at a park and reusing it and using it for irrigation, for example, or is there a local place on a county road where we can take that stormwater and divert it to a sewer line that goes to a regional water recycling facility. So we're working with the county right now to explore all of those concepts, and we're getting some really exciting projects that may come out of it, and I'm sure will be highlighted in the report that we're working on. Next slide. And so this is the final slide on stormwater. So we started again at the watershed county level, then brought it down to the county facilities, and now we're bringing it down to like a parcel or a project or an individual home or business scale. And so we also looked at opportunities to collect more stormwater and how that's associated to private development projects. And so private development projects are required to consider stormwater when they're being developed. And what we've identified, though, is that throughout Southern California, there isn't a lot of incentive or requirement to install these types of systems. So we're looking at ways to try and incentivize that more. There are some leaders, though, that have gone above and beyond to implement and collect and view stormwater as a resource. One of those on the screen, SoFi Stadium, go Rams, if anyone's ever been there. They have a huge lake feature where with the development of that stadium, they designed it to collect a bunch of stormwater and mix it with some other sources and reuse it for irrigation there. So really neat project. And there's also another leader in stormwater collection that's in your own neighborhood here for any San Diego citizens here, and that's the San Diego Regional Airport Authority. And so they have done just some amazing and super innovative work with collecting stormwater and use at the airport and using it for different purposes. They've been really active with working with us throughout this whole effort, and they've provided us with some videos to share with you today, which Elise, please start the first one.
Did you know that San Diego International Airport collects and reuses 1 million gallons of stormwater each year? The rain that falls on parts of the airport campus is collected, treated, and then reused for non-potable purposes like cooling our terminals or washing equipment. The airport has 2 main areas that we currently collect stormwater from, and we plan to increase the amount collected in the coming years. Stormwater can lead to the pollution of our waterways and natural environment. By capturing, treating, and reusing stormwater, we're doing our part to keep San Diego beautiful.
Oh, that is just so awesome. And they did also share another super innovative effort that they've implemented, and that is reusing AC condensate. So when you go to an airport, it's usually air conditioned and cool, and AC condensate actually creates a lot of water that can be reused. And so they've had a lot of innovation there. And before we start this video, I did just want to note that this video does include a partnership with Ballast Point Brewing Company, and actually they're working now with East Village Brewing. So go ahead and play the next one, Elise.
You know that at San Diego International Airport, we turn our water into beer? It all started when an employee noticed excess water dripping on the tarmac from the air conditioning systems that cool the planes and passenger boarding bridges. So we developed a way to reroute this water and collect it in tanks. We then pump out the water and reuse it for things like washing equipment, mitigating dust, cooling our terminals, and making beer. Because condensate water has very little mineral content, it is actually an ideal base for brewers. A special thanks to our partners, Ballast Point Brewery and Waterworks, Inc., for helping us create Sand Test Pilot in 2019. We look forward to expanding our condensate capture and reuse program in the future, and be on the lookout for more airport-produced beer.
Oh, that's great. They are like my heroes over there at the Airport Authority. And I do believe some of their team is participating today. So if you have any questions, please plan to ask. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Elise. But before I do, please stick around. We're going to be talking a little bit more about the condensate reuse and gray water reuse after this discussion period. Elise?
Great. Thanks so much, Stephanie. Yeah, it's amazing to see all this come together and see the examples come to life and have these conversations through the efforts of stakeholder interviews and our interactions be shared during this event with you all. And I really do appreciate SoFi Stadium. Although I'm a 49er fan, I do appreciate the Rams for their stadium. Just had to throw that in there. But at this time, we're going to start transitioning into the discussion component. So if you are able to share your thoughts with us, if you have feedback, if you have questions, we have the project team here, including myself, for any project-related items you may have. Also, we have the Geosyntec team available for any questions you have about the report or the assessment. And so this is an open discussion, but if you do have any questions on your mind, please feel free to raise your hand or take yourself off mic. There are some questions here that we have decided to share with you as well, just to get you thinking a little bit. So the first one I'll leave with you: how could stormwater collection and use benefit your property or community? So if anyone has any feedback on that, I'm happy to hear your thoughts. And I may have some folks raising their hands, but I don't have a visual, so apologies. I have a little tech issue here. All right, can someone from my team see if anyone is raising their hands or anything in the chat?
No hands right now, Elise.
Thanks, Natalia. If there's anyone who would like to come off mute and give your feedback or answer our first question, we'll be happy to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I have it blacked out. My name's Cindy Luster, and I live over here on Harris Trail in Duluth, in Fallbrook area. And all the stormwater drains onto my property from all of, my properties at the lower end and the velocity. So sometimes the water will be up to our knees. And we went from having an 8-inch drain to having to put in a 24-inch concrete culvert with a drain with 100 feet of 24-inch corrugated pipe. And it came up, and I had I won't say names or anything, professionals doing the installation, right? And then a neighbor, he did blasting, and he gave all his soil to a neighbor above me. And you could have ran 2 or 3 dune buggies on it. There was so much soil, and it came down and it filled up my wetlands, endangered species ravine. It had been 10 feet deep, and over 12 feet across. And eventually wouldn't be able to subdivide the property. And I've applied with the natural resources, and I qualify. And the thing is the birds, the person in 81, when we purchased the property, they put in Canariensis palms, like date palms. And we had over 300 palms, and at least 3 of them were 45 feet tall, unshaved, before you would get to the leaf. And that was, all the birds, everything lives there. So it filled up the ravine. And so we did a above ground, like a freeway, where we laid, so if since the water would come above our knees, if the drain got clogged with debris from the runoff from the rain, we'd have to get out there, and usually we clear it before the rains came, make sure, all debris. So this was like for the overflow to go into the ravine. And what had happened is over 5 years before, FPUD, the Fallbrook Public Utility District, they had to fix a main pipe in the road above, along my property. My property goes from south to north, right? And I'm all frontage road. And the county had even years ago had to put in French drains because of the amount of water, that they were afraid the road was going to be undone. And I had to fight that. I had to hire a lawyer and fight that. And I knew 30 years ago, I've been there since 81. So, I was there in 81 before it was even, it was all dirt road, and there were no avocados that would wash out every year. That's why the county put in French drains. And the neighbors tried to get me. You talk about, justice, environmental justice. And, I mean, I reported it to the, whoever you report that to the county. Nothing ever got done. All my palms are dead. My property was vandalized, targeted, to the point where I called in domestic terrorism. And so originally, when the property was bought by my father in 81, the conservation group here in Fallbrook for the water, they wanted him to make a collection site, but it was just too much money for us. We couldn't do it. He decided to do wells. He tried wells. So now this area is filled. There's dead palms, and I've been cleaning. We had over 300. So now there's, I don't know, maybe 50 to 100 left on the whole property, and they're all dying. And you know, and the USDA said it wasn't the insect. They came out and they had checked it. It wasn't the drought. I don't know what it was, but
Right.
2 weeks after my fences got knocked down, my palms all started dying. And that was 3 years ago. When I told the neighbor about the soil coming down, he just went and drove away. Didn't say, hey, let me come and, you know, bring a backhoe and help you get that out. So the
Yeah.
stormwater, it goes down. There's a lot of hip camps, but it's a lot of water. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I hear
it
you.
could be collected, but I heard it's more money to keep it collected and treat it than it's worth having. You know, if it was
Yeah,
something that
thank you for that.
NCRS would open up, which they've looked at it, and they want the palms out. So now there's what, maybe 20 down there. I
Yeah,
just
Cindy,
over
it's really
and
great to hear your information as far as what your lived experience is, and we really want to capture what your concerns are. And what I'd like to do is, if you wouldn't mind sharing your contact either with me, if you want to email me directly, I'm happy to connect you with some folks. That way we can continue this conversation, because this is very
okay.
valuable. And I'm sorry for what you've been through. We definitely want to hear more about it. If you're comfortable with emailing me, I do have my email available. We can drop it in the chat for you.
Oh,
We
that'd be
also have
great. Thank you,
resources through the
Natalie.
county that we can continue this conversation, but we do really appreciate you sharing your story with us. We
Yeah,
want to
but
make sure that
the
we get
thing,
a,
the one thing that
yeah,
it would help is the people who have to, when the water's, you know, a road wide and up to your knees, there's going to be people who will not be able to get out. They
right.
won't be able to get out. So that's, I don't know. Okay. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Bye.
No, thank you, Cindy. Really appreciate that. And especially hearing about the experiences and how you can
Thank
share
you.
that with the rest of our community is very valuable. So we
Thank
will
you.
get in touch with you, whether you want to share your, if you feel comfortable sharing your contact in the chat itself,
Yes.
or we'll also provide my email so I can connect you with some county folks further. So I want
Okay.
to
Thank
open
you
up
very
the floor
much.
to folks. If we have any other questions regarding the presentation itself, if you have any feedback about what's studied in this assessment. Also, we have 2 questions that we have for you if you want to think about some ideas. And then we also have what kind of educational information or resources for stormwater collection and use would be helpful for you and your community. So kind of like what Cindy is mentioning on that there's a lot of areas throughout the county and also to our neighbors in Imperial and binational areas where we're having different experiences. So if you can think of or have any suggestions of educational material that might be very valuable, we'd like to hear about it. So feel free to either comment in the chat or come off mute if you have any thoughts.
I believe I saw Dexter wanted to talk next. Dexter, if you still want to speak at all?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just typed in my question as you were asking me. So yeah, I just wanted to ask, can coastal communities be good candidates for stormwater collection and reuse? I live in Ocean Beach. I've been here for about 12 years now, and it's a beautiful area, but the town can go from at sea level to 200 feet above sea level. So all that runoff from the higher hills just really inundates us here in the lower lying parts of Ocean Beach. And I just wanted to know if those could potentially be good candidates for water reuse and stormwater collection.
Yeah, thank you so much for your question, Dexter. That's really insightful, and that's really helpful to hear for our communities on the coastal areas as well. What I'll do is I'll turn this over to either Stephanie Zinn or Stephanie Gaines. We have 2 Stephanies on our team, both very amazing folks who might be able to answer your question and provide a little more context. So Zinn, I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Yeah. Excellent experience. I actually live up in Orange County, and we see similar things with Newport Beach. And so, you know, water likes to flow downhill. And so if there are opportunities to capture that on a, you know, a sub watershed scale and find locations where you can use that for different purposes, I think maybe a good next step for us would be to start at Ocean Beach and see what watershed you're in, and look at some opportunities there. But yeah, as part of this effort, the county is looking for opportunities to do that, and we know several cities are starting to think about stormwater more as a resource. And you know, and this kind of gets at what Cindy was saying a little bit too, is that with a changing climate, we're seeing these more intense storm events, right? This past year was crazy. We got a lot of water. So how can we capture that and bring it into our local water resources portfolio to increase our resiliency here? So, I think we've been seeing a lot more localized flooding. So how can we work with the folks who manage the infrastructure in Ocean Beach and improve it? And how can we, from a flood perspective, and then as well as from a resource perspective, how do we make that balance? So I think there's probably opportunities and would be definitely something to look into. Thank you. Stephanie Gaines, did you have anything to add?
I think you did a great job, and I'm so sorry I have no voice, so you have to excuse me. But one of the things I would suggest is small scale solutions, rain barrels. I saw one of the commenters in the chat mentioned their rain barrels. That's an excellent resource for capturing stormwater locally and using it on site. And also there are many programs and incentives and rebates for what we used to call sustainable landscapes, but also water-wise landscapes, or as Surfrider program calls, the ocean-friendly gardens. Convert your landscape to basically a stormwater BMP and capture and store stormwater in your landscape. You reduce your potable water use and you take advantage of all that rainwater right there on your site and reduce the water that flows off of your site. Those are small scale solutions, but they certainly can help the more people that take advantage of them. It's a great question, Dexter. Thank you.
Thank you both, Stephanie. Really appreciate that. We have some great context here. So we have a few more questions here. We have a few more minutes just to go ahead and I see we have Brooke Sarson. Hi, Brooke. Go ahead and come off mute and give us your thoughts.
Hey, Elise. Thank you, everybody. I'm from Catching H2O. We install rainwater tanks and gray water systems, and you'll hear from me in a minute. But I just wanted to talk about an interesting scenario that we've come across, especially on the coast, like Del Mar, La Jolla, kind of those coastal areas. Because it's kind of the last stop before the ocean, we've found that there's like a lot of light wells, or basically groundwater collection tanks that basically pump the water that is collecting subsurface, which is probably most people's irrigation water that's like running to the coast, and then ends up pooling underground in people's properties. And then that ends up getting pumped into the storm drains. And so we've developed a particularly useful solution to like pump it into a rainwater storage tank and then tie that into irrigation. So some people get thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water a year of runoff essentially from other people's irrigation. And so we're able to use that as an irrigation source. But it's interesting because different places, the county and the city, they don't want to see that water going out to the storm drain in the middle of the summer, for example. And so some of our clients have been pinged for, ejecting that water to the storm drain, which is why they call us, because they're trying to keep it on site. And so it's just an interesting juxtaposition where we're actually creating stormwater essentially in our communities. And but there are very cool solutions out there for using it as a resource and managing it well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brooke. Yeah, and you will hear from Brooke here in another moment in our next segment. She's a great, excellent resource. We appreciate your feedback. We have time for one other question or thought here. I see Andy Lyle, if you want to go ahead and come off mute.
Sure. Thank you guys for this. I know we're going to talk about agriculture later. I'm an agricultural produce citrus and avocados in the rural part of the county. So I love the idea of stormwater capture for groundwater. So I'm really happy to hear that you guys are considering that as part of this. My question, and maybe you haven't gotten this far, in the urban areas for agriculture, do you have any idea if stormwater collection going into a treatment plant would be affordable for agriculture, since we have so many farms intermixed in these urban areas where that infrastructure is? I don't have it in my area, but would it be, I mean, that sounds awesome to me, but is it any idea if it's going to be at all affordable for farmers with very thin margins? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Andy. Appreciate that. We have our third and last segment about water and agriculture, so we'll have a lot of good information. I think you'll be really happy to hear from that. But just want to turn this over real quickly for maybe Stephanie Zinn, if you'd like to give a quick response about some of the opportunities that we've been researching for water and agriculture.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's a very excellent point. And as we've looked at the entire region, Imperial, San Diego, the border communities in Mexico, water affordability has definitely been something we're looking into. And we are identifying some differences between how much water costs throughout the region. And we have seen in San Diego County that due to all the progressive diversification with different sources that requires infrastructure, and that may increase the cost of water. What we have seen that has been pretty neat, and I think the farming community has been supportive, is a plant improvement project in Escondido that's recycling wastewater specifically for agricultural producers. And I'm not an expert on this, but I'm thinking they're doing it with the minds of treating it to a standard that's, appropriate for agriculture to hopefully keep those, the costs down. Megan, on our team, if you have anything to add, it's definitely something we're looking into.
Thanks. Yeah, Andy, excellent question. We are looking at stormwater capture across the entire county, looking for opportunities to help in the ag community in particular. I do think there would be great opportunities for that. It depends on what the water is going to be used for in terms of the amount of treatment needed is one thing to consider. So that would of course increase the cost, right, if treatment is needed. So it's highly dependent kind of on a site specific situation. So we'll just leave it at that for now, but definitely potential, and we're looking for those sorts of opportunities.
Great. Thank you so much. And yes, we do appreciate all this wonderful feedback. We have 2 more segments that we want to share with you. So we're going to move on to the next segment, which is gray water. And once again, we'll be having our Geosyntec team, Stephanie Zinn, share some of our high-level overview and key takeaway items for gray water. So I'll hand it back over to her for this next segment.
Great. Thanks so much, Elise. So gray water is a little different as compared to stormwater, right? Stormwater, it only rains a couple times a year. We got a lot of rain this year. But gray water is something that we can reuse on a daily basis, which makes it a little different. So I'll talk a little bit more about the different scales of gray water reuse opportunities if you head to the next slide. So we've been researching gray water and different scales of how it can be implemented. So you could have a gray water system with a single family home, having a washing machine connected to a landscaped area or a yard to reuse that washing machine water more than once. And then on larger scales, we've also identified that there's been projects implemented throughout the US and in a couple different areas where there's large scale hotels or multi-story buildings or universities with dormitories or different uses where you have a lot of hand washing or a lot of showers, where there may be an opportunity to capture that gray water and reuse it, treat it and reuse it for toilet flushing or spray irrigation or condensate makeup. And we actually were able to interview the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and they have a program in place right now that actually requires the installation of gray water reuse systems with development projects over a certain size. And if you think about some of the buildings in San Francisco, skyscrapers, big buildings, and they have implemented over, I think, 25 or 30 projects where developers are installing these to have a local water resiliency benefit. And they shared that it has been accepted by the development community and that their residents up there really appreciate this program. So we don't have a similar program anywhere down here in Southern California. So we definitely have a lot of lessons learned from San Francisco and others that we've interviewed who have implemented these programs. And something that we talked with them about and that we've thought of, so certain development projects, you can go to the next one, the graphic that was actually right on. So as I mentioned before, certain development projects have a requirement to assess the feasibility of capturing and collecting and using stormwater. But as we know, as I mentioned, it doesn't rain all the time. So could you combine that with a gray water system? And so this is like a multi-benefit concept that we think is super innovative, more cost-effective, more efficient, using the system on a daily basis, and also having the capacity to capture stormwater that'll benefit downstream water quality by keeping that on site and using it for toilet flushing or irrigation. So some really exciting, innovative ideas that we're coming up with and sharing throughout the community on the opportunities to do these to do these systems, but primarily on a larger scale for this example. Next slide. But then on a smaller scale, there's also opportunities. So if you have an individual or a family goal to be more sustainable, if you want to maybe save on your water bill, there are these laundry to landscape programs, and rebates do exist in some jurisdictions throughout the county where you can take this washing machine water and retrofit your home to irrigate your landscaped area or your yards. And we actually have an expert who helps people make decisions about these systems that I think Elise is going to introduce. So I'll go ahead and hand it back over to Elise to hear a little bit more about how you could actually implement these systems with your home.
Great. Yes, thank you for that, Stephanie. So yeah, we're very excited to have Catching H2O with us tonight and also be featuring some of the great work they do. So I'll be introducing Brooke Sarson. She'll be giving an audio over for Catching H2O, which is a local San Diego company that leads the charge for implementation of gray water and rainwater techniques for residential and commercial projects. So very excited to hear from her, and I'll go ahead and start her presentation.
At Catching H2O, we've been installing gray water systems for over 15 years. We've installed hundreds of gray water systems, from simple laundry to landscape, no permit required systems, to the first permitted gray water to indoor use for toilet flushing system in the county. I'd like to share a few examples of how effective gray water use can be. In this first example, 3 15-minute showers a day produce over 600 gallons of gray water a week. At this home in Escondido, we were able to simply direct this water into a basin that allows the water to pool and soak in. We covered this basin in mulch, and 4 years later, we have 8 very productive fruit trees. At this home in South Park, we removed a lawn and created this basin that will allow us to catch 2 10-minute showers a day, or over 200 gallons of gray water a week. This allowed a new landscape to take hold very easily with very little imported water for irrigation. At this University City home, a 1,000 square foot lawn requires over 20,000 gallons of water a year. We've reduced the amount of water needed to 0 by redirecting shower and laundry gray water into the landscape, and we can still grow 5 fruit trees and a plethora of other plantings. Gray water requires both plumbing and landscape knowledge. People want to use gray water, but they don't understand what's appropriate and safe. We need workforce development, education about regulations, and the appropriate, safe, and cost-effective ways that we can use gray water, as well as what types of plants and landscapes work with this gently used water. This water is an abundant resource that we can use to create healthy soil to help sequester carbon, provide habitat for pollinators, create shade, and grow food in our urban environments.
Great, thank you. So that was Brooke Sarson. Her information will be available in the chat if you are interested in reaching out to her directly, if you would like to collaborate or have any questions directly for her. She's a great resource. And now we'll transition into our second question section, to our discussion section. And we're really excited to have you all with us, as I mentioned, because gray water is something that we've noticed through our outreach events that a lot of folks are interested to hear more about. There's a lot of educational opportunities, and we want to hear from you what your interests might be, where you might want to have more opportunities for education. So just a thought from some conversation starters: where might the use of gray water benefit your home, business, or community? And also, how do you envision gray water contributing to increasing local water supply reliability? So once again, if you want to give us any thoughts related to those questions, or come off mute to give us any of your feedback, the floor is yours. I don't see any hands yet, but I do want to mention that we do have Brooke Sarson with us in person, or virtually in person today. So if you do have questions, she's also a great resource, but happy to answer any questions you might have regarding what was studied in this overall assessment. So feel free to come off mute or raise your hand or give us your question in the chat.
Elise, there was a comment from a Wendy about regulations for gray water in her community that I did just want to provide an update and something that we've identified through our research. So yeah, the regulations to back or get a gray water system approved, especially in Southern California, have, I would say, definitely been kind of behind the bar. Fortunately, the State Water Resources Control Board, I think in partnership with DWR, Department of Water Resources, are coming out with standards for different types of water sources, including gray water. So how much do you need to treat gray water or storm water? What are the regulations? What are the standards? How do you permit something like this? So I do believe guidance for that is coming down from the state. So hopefully local municipalities will be able to utilize that to hopefully incentivize gray water a little bit more. But I really appreciate that note from Wendy in the chat.
Yeah, thank you for that, Wendy, and thanks for that oversight and giving us a little more information, Stephanie. Any other folks out there have any comments or feedback they'd like to give us for gray water?
Elise, also in the chat, we had Ryan write, I think that providing incentives for residents to proactively invest in diverting gray water from their homes to their property would be a great idea.
Great suggestion. Yes, let Brooke speak on that as well.
Yeah, I would love to just let you know that historically the city of San Diego did offer incentives. They were offering $250 rebate for a laundry to landscape system and $1,000 for a permitted shower whole house gray water system. I don't think a lot of people were taking advantage of those incentives, and they removed the incentive program. I think part of the problem is that in order to get the $1,000 rebate, you actually needed to get a permit for your gray water system, and permitting gray water systems in the city of San Diego is a little bit challenging, as somebody else mentioned for La Mesa. We have pulled permits all across the county, and some places make it a little bit easier than others. There is, code. The Chapter 15 of the California Plumbing Code does regulate gray water use. And so part of our work has been just pushing back on the regulators to say, like, no, it's legal. No, this is how it can be done. It doesn't have to be done in that complicated way. And so we have a lot of experience working with, just all the municipalities around the county on that. But I think that just having a wider array of education so that everybody understands better how to use it more appropriately would be really helpful. I know, for example, the city of Encinitas requires gray water stub outs in all new development, but I think that's been on the books for, I don't know, like 5 years now. And up until this last year, they weren't even kind of following through with those regulations. And even now, it's like the builders and the architects don't know how to implement those gray water stub outs anyway. So there's a lot of confusion still where it is incentivized, encouraged. So I just think, asking, people who know, looking at the Chapter 15 of the gray water code and, just pushing through with what's a practical alternative to some of these options. Sometimes it takes all of us to work on this together.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with that and appreciate that insight, Brooke. And, you mentioned a really good point that there's a lot of opportunities for education, and we want to continue that. And a lot of what we've been trying to accomplish through this overall effort and through our deep dives, which will be posted on the website for the Regional Water Equity effort very shortly, is that we really want to see where folks might need more education or more insight or more information for whatever their collaboration needs or interests might be. So if there are any specifics or specific questions that you could see benefiting your community, whether you're a resident or for your business as well, we're happy to hear what type of educational opportunities you might be interested in. I don't see any other hands right now, but we do have a few more minutes to discuss this really great topic with all of you. Again, we appreciate your feedback, whether you want questions answered or if you would like more information about what was studied in this assessment. And you're welcome to come off mute, raise your hand, or type your question in the chat.
Ryan wrote in the chat that he thinks providing practical options for homeowners and providing easy to follow guides and protocols to show them how to begin the process would be the most helpful for them, for those who do not know these code or permit restrictions. And also said great info. Thank you.
That's great. Yes, thank you so much, Ryan. That's a really good pointer as far as what are the first steps, and that's helpful insight and feedback for us. Thank you. Are there any other folks out there that have questions or would like to give feedback? We really appreciate those who have been giving us their thoughts. This is very valuable, and we do have a few more minutes. We also want to offer that if you have questions after this event, if there's something you think of, or maybe start researching on your own, we're happy to be a resource. I'll provide my contact information at the end of this event. You can also keep in touch with us and keep in tune with what's happening with this overall effort on the website as well, which we'll provide that before we say goodbye later today. Okay, I don't see any other hands, but just want to give a moment to anyone who hasn't spoken up yet. If you have any questions, any thoughts on gray water, we're happy to hear from you. Okay, so if there aren't any other comments in the chat, can I get a quick check on that if there are any responses in the chat?
I see Wenda asked what public education campaigns are in the works. And Aaron has a question after that.
Okay, great question. Yeah, so what type of educational outreach opportunities are in the works? That's something that we're actually doing through this overall effort. The Regional Water Equity effort is the very first preliminary steps of cultivating what type of programs that might be necessary for further steps for what we're studying. So for the stormwater, gray water, and water and agriculture. So this is actually something that we're structuring right now to get your feedback on very first steps. I'll also turn it over to if Stephanie Gaines has any other feedback about any other educational opportunities through the county that might be available. And I'll also turn it over to Brooke Sarson if you have any outreach available or outreach educational material available for folks.
Thank you, Elise. This is Stephanie Gaines. I did post some incentive and rebate items in the chat, and I will continue to post some of our educational materials there as well, mostly related to stormwater reuse or stormwater treatment, stormwater quality, but it's all really good information. And you can also sign up for our Gov delivery list if you'd like any additional information in the future and for ways to keep in contact with us via this report. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Stephanie. And Brooke, I don't know if you had any feedback or any material or resources for folks on education.
Well, I just want to let people know that we help a lot of do-it-yourselfers. We offer a lot of workshops. I mean, part of our work has been to increase the availability of these techniques for the general public. So, we've done dozens and dozens of hands-on workshops where we install a gray water system from start to finish, and rainwater tanks, etc. But so we do have some things on our website, but you can always sign up to work with us to learn, how to do it yourself. And we have lots of information and opportunities there too.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, Brooke. We'll also share Brooke's contact in the chat as well. And just make sure that if you do have any questions for her, she's a great resource. I do see Wendy's hand up. Was there a follow-up to your question? Hi, Wendy.
Hello, my name is George. And I'm a scientist.
He's here with me.
And I haven't heard any discussion at all on quality. I did hear the word quality mentioned, and I'm concerned about the various aspects of groundwater, well, stormwater, gray water, etc., particularly with PFAS, which are forever chemicals, as you might know, that are very dangerous for human consumption. And so, and there are plants that are going to use this water will bioaccumulate PFAS in the various plants, whether it be strawberries or apricots in your trees, etc. So is there any data available to give us parts per million, parts per trillion of various chemicals in these water sources?
Thank you for that question. Really appreciate that. As far as I understand where you're coming from, as well as the type of concerns that you and we all have as a community with PFAS and microplastics, very serious concern. It's something that we don't have the opportunity to study within this assessment itself right now. There's the focus on stormwater, gray water, and water and agriculture. But however, that is some really helpful feedback that we can collect at this time and bring back to our Board of Supervisors to let folks know that the topic of water is very broad and there are a lot of different varieties of concerns and how it's impacted. So that is very helpful feedback, and there can be future studies for that. As far as data that's available through the county, we don't have feedback at this time, but we can definitely follow up with you for more information on that. If you're willing to give us your contact information, whether in the chat or you can reach out to me directly, I'll provide my email in the chat for more follow-up. Really appreciate that feedback. All right, so at this time, we're going to move on to our third and final topic, which is water and agriculture. And this is a really exciting topic. We are very happy to be able to have the opportunity to study this. And once again, we have Geosyntec. We have Megan Otto with us, who will be giving us the oversight of what was studied and some of the key takeaway items from this topic within the report itself. So I'll go ahead and hand it over to Megan Otto.
Great. Thank you, Elise. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. First of all, recognizing that this effort, the regional water equity effort, recognizes agriculture's role within the regional food system as very important to reduce carbon emissions in the food chain, support food sovereignty, and increase local access to healthy foods. So agricultural production is present in all of the focus areas. They're shown in green in this map generally, but each of the focus areas do have varying crop portfolios and sizes of farms. Each area also experiences different water realities. Many farms are leaning into low water use solutions, but opportunities still exist, and recognizing that financial assistance and incentives may be needed. So regionally, there is a need for reliable water supply in the face of unpredictable climate change. Essentially, a need to understand how agricultural water reliability can be increased for each supply source. So whether your farm is dependent on groundwater, imported water, or some other potential supply or a mix. We've also heard concerns expressed by farmers in nearly every focus area regarding the cost of water. So looking at opportunities on a regional scale, agriculture in every focus area will really benefit from three things. First, further water supply portfolio diversification, including strategies that Stephanie mentioned earlier. So looking for opportunities for stormwater collection, recycled water and gray water reuse, and potentially on-site wash water recycling. Secondly, strategic implementation of water conservation strategies. So exploring options based on the applicability to the specific crop and farm location, but things like drip irrigation conversion, leak detection, regenerative agriculture, and other options. And then thirdly, further analysis to assess the optimal range of crops that would be best suited for production within each focus area, given the unique microclimates, crop water needs, and crop marketability to ensure that farmer livelihood is met. So importantly, these opportunities cost money. So policy moving forward will need to take into consideration the value of agriculture to each focus area and the impacts to farmer livelihood. And this is especially important within the context of long-term planning around unpredictable climate change impacts, as well as supporting local food systems and promoting natural climate solutions. And so next, we're going to look at the needs and opportunities specific to each focus area. So first is San Diego County, and this includes both the western and the eastern focus areas that Elise mentioned previously. The county as a whole has a portfolio of primarily small farms where 70% are between 1 and 9 acres, and actually 96% are family owned. The crop portfolio from 2021 is shown on this slide with nursery plants as the primary market share. Note that these percentages change each year depending on the market, demand for certain products, and climate conditions. So needs within this area generally center around the variability of water issues faced by small agricultural businesses. These include the high cost of imported and municipal water, largely due to fixed fees, low reliability and availability of groundwater. So for those who do have access to groundwater, potentially concerns around depletion, energy to extract, and in some cases quality, such as nitrates and salts. And then if treatment is needed, then the cost needed to treat that groundwater to a usable level. And an additional need is just, in general, the less reliable rainfall patterns, including unpredictable drought and less regular storm events. So where historically you could rely on the rain at least irrigating your crops for part of the year, it's becoming less regular and reliable as a source of water. There are, however, opportunities to leverage existing technologies and programs. These may include national, state, and local grants for water conservation technologies, as well as grant support. So basically matching specific farms to the programs that fit them, and then assisting with the application process. Also on-farm water recycling, so looking at opportunities for gray water, stormwater collection, wash water reuse, and then including funding and incentive programs, as well as technical support to actually help the farms design and implement these. Also improving farm access to large-scale water recycling. So connecting them into potentially purple pipe networks, or a system like the membrane filtration reverse osmosis facility in Escondido, which blends treated water with recycled water, which then produces water with a salt concentration appropriate for agricultural irrigation. This is a great system. It's intended to serve many avocado growers. Also looking at continuing to leverage technologies such as smart water meters, leak detection, conversion to drip irrigation where it makes sense, and also soil moisture sensors. And then lastly, potentially the development of a local crop conversion program to identify the optimal range of crops that would be best suited for production, given the unique microclimates, crop water needs, and crop marketability to ensure that farmer livelihood is met. Next, we'll look at Imperial County. So Imperial County has a very different agricultural makeup as compared to San Diego County. They have about double the total acreage used for farming, with an average farm size around 200 acres, so much larger. And the crop types are also different. They're primarily focused on vegetables and cattle and meat products. Agricultural water is provided primarily by the Imperial Irrigation District. So because Imperial County is fully reliant on imported water from the Colorado River, this may become more of a concern in the future if the Colorado River Basin continues to experience more drought and related water shortages. Therefore, the diversification of the county water portfolio may help with responding to such future concerns. That said, there is an ongoing need to balance water affordability, since, as I mentioned, increasing water diversification also results in higher water costs. And water costs in Imperial County are currently very low because of their senior water rights. So just keeping in mind that future policy would need to consider this. Opportunities in Imperial County also center around water reliability. So there are some opportunities looking at potentially upgrades to irrigation systems that result in improved crop yield while also conserving water. And then looking at, as well as I mentioned for San Diego County, but potentially if there could be crops that are better suited for the arid environment while still producing high yields and contributing to farmer livelihood. Next, we'll look at the tribal nations focus area. So there are 20 federally recognized sovereign tribal nations and 1 non-federally recognized tribal government in the region. And tribal nations have agricultural production at different levels. For example, the Pala Band of Mission Indians grows their own food for their elders. The Palma Band of Mission Indians grows Hass avocados, Valencia oranges, and other products on their lands, and participates in community-supported agriculture programs. So water needs are very specific to the tribes, including the variety of existing infrastructure, microclimates, and food sovereignty in terms of the types of crops that are important to the cultures of each tribe. So here there's really an opportunity to better understand the specific tribal needs, especially in terms of accessibility to water resources. There's a pretty broad variety in terms of where the water supplies come from. Some rely on trucking water in, some have municipal supply or are connected to an adjacent supply, and then some tribes are fully reliant on groundwater. And it's very important that we match the water supply opportunities to the needs of each tribe. There is also an opportunity to build on existing tribal relationships and forge new tribal relationships as policies and programs related to water within the region are developed. So it's very important that tribal voices are incorporated into this decision-making process. Within the border communities focus area, most agricultural production is in Mexicali, with crops including wheat, alfalfa, cotton, and vegetables, such as asparagus, cotton, carrots, and others. This focus area is highly reliant on the Colorado River. They have minimal access to groundwater, and therefore reliability is a concern. And it may become more so if the Colorado River basin experiences more drought and water-related shortages. Therefore, diversification of the local Mexico water portfolio may help with responding to such future concerns. And as noted previously, there is an ongoing need to balance, of course, water affordability with efforts to increase water diversification. Similar to Imperial County, there may be opportunities for farmers to modify irrigation practices that can result in improved crop yield while conserving water, and also to assess if there are crops that would be better suited for the arid environment while producing high yields and contributing to farmer livelihood. There is also an opportunity to really build partnerships with Mexico to understand the border community's agricultural needs, especially for supporting transboundary water supplies that Stephanie had mentioned earlier, including shared ground and surface water resources. And as a means to build partnerships around these shared resources, there should be efforts to identify additional shared interests. Shared interests at the regional level include implementation of climate-smart agricultural practices that have many co-benefits. They tend to improve soil health, enhance crop yields, increase water infiltration that supports groundwater recharge, improve irrigation efficiencies, and increase carbon sequestration that helps mitigate climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So throughout this effort, we heard many messages from our agricultural communities. We heard that agricultural value includes food sovereignty and cultural uses to sustain indigenous societies. For example, things like seed banks, acorns, and supplies for basket making. We also heard that practical solutions are needed, tailored to the type, scale, and location of each individual farm. It was mentioned that food equity is water equity. We heard that despite water use reductions and recent improvements in irrigation systems and techniques, prices still continue to go up. We heard that farming needs to be profitable in terms of the cost of water, but also in terms of other costs, labor, fertilizer, etc. And if farming is not profitable, the land can be sold and lost to agriculture forever. We heard that regenerative agriculture may be promising as it can conserve water and improve the soil to reduce fertilizer demands. We also heard that it is challenging to grow crops that are not viable for the climate and a sensible transition is needed. And then lastly, as an example, we heard that it can be challenging to rely on the agricultural water program in times of drought. So these perspectives are extremely valuable to consider as future projects and programs are developed. So thank you to everyone who has participated so far. We've really tried to take your input to heart. And with that, I'll pass it to Elise to hopefully hear more of your thoughts on this subject.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. Yes, it's really been just a wonderful opportunity to hear from our communities and hear from our agricultural communities as well. So this is a very exciting time. And I know we have a few folks online here today joining us from our ag communities. So we're excited to hear from you if you're willing to give us some of your thoughts. And so now back to our third and final discussion component. We'd love to hear your thoughts about where we're at with the agricultural topic we just went over. If you have any feedback at this time, or if you'd like to have any of your questions answered, Also, if there's any questions about next steps, we're happy to talk it through with you. And just to get a few of these ideas going, some of the questions we've thought of that we'd like to hear from you is, given the significant value of agriculture for our region and using water lens, what are some economic, social, and environmental opportunities for sustaining agriculture? And also, we'd like for you to think about, if you envision for water use in agriculture in the region in 20 and 50 years from now. So just a few ideas to think about. And again, you can come off mute if you're comfortable, raise your hand, and also respond in the chat. We really appreciate your feedback. Hi, Janet. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. It's been very good. I'm so happy to hear the sense that you have of agriculture. You have a pretty good sense of it. But I wanted to add on to some of the things, including kind of answering that first question. I want to repeat what every other farmer has said, because I'm a farmer in Fallbrook, is that if we're not profitable, we're not going to be able to stay in business. And that's just the bottom line. We're like any other business. But one of the things is on the recycled to the reclaimed water, using that. Yes, we're looking forward to using that in the future. However, it's still going to have to be cleaned up. I want to give you an example. We have 26 acres, and through the different droughts that we've had to put infrastructure into our farm in order to convert completely over to drip irrigation. 26 acres in drip irrigation has been extremely expensive. There's no more water we can get out of that rock. So all we can do is start reusing some of our water, but it still has to be cleaned up. So I was happy to hear about the grants and the different incentives that you were talking about. That would be very helpful, because it's been difficult to convert everything to drip and still have enough money to make the cleanup that we would need for the water done too. So that would help make agriculture sustainable into the future. The other thing is, I did have a little bit of concern when you were talking about the crop conversion. And I do want to tell you, in San Diego County, and that's all I can speak of because that's where I'm from, is that the farmers are very, they've graduated from college for it. Many of them have master's degrees. Quite a few actually have doctorate degrees. There's a lot of expertise in the farming that they do. And so it's not easy. You can't convert your crops because that's what your expertise is in. Also, the facilities that we have is not able to be converted to another crop. And so I don't see crop conversion as very high on the list. A farmer, in order to stay profitable, will make whatever adjustments they need to do, but totally changing a crop in many cases is not going to be feasible. So I just wanted to make those few comments, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janet. Thank you for being here and for that helpful insight. You gave us two really great points to build off of, and I think that this is exactly what we're hoping to hear, is that every opportunity we have to sit down with our communities and have these type of conversations is very valuable. So we're taking note of what your feedback is, and I wanted to just also pass it to Megan Otto if there's any feedback about Janet's second point about crop variation, and if there's any other feedback we'd like to provide for her.
Sure, yeah. No, totally recognize your point. The reason that has been mentioned is there's a similar crop swap program in Riverside County. And it pays farmers a certain amount per acre to convert to lower water use varieties of crops. So that's just something they've offered in the past in terms of conversion to wine grapes, citrus, olives, and other crops. And they're currently supporting avocado rootstock upgrades. So that's just a model of a program that I can mention as an example. But I totally recognize where you're coming from on that. So thank you for your input.
Great. Thank you both. Really great insight, really great feedback. Are there any other questions out there? Folks might want to know a little more about what we're studying, or any feedback or questions you might have about water use when it comes to agricultural production, or any other than the next steps. Hi, Andy. Go right ahead.
Hello, thanks. Great points, Janet. I would also caution you guys to think that we can cut ourselves, that we can conserve our way into a better situation. There's many of us who have made these upgrades already because it's a good financial decision and it's a good we're frugal, right? We've got to work with what we have. And so there have been many of us who have already made irrigation decisions based on our water availability or our water cost. And so to expect there to be major cuts still available is maybe a little bit of wishful thinking. And and so with crop swap, that may be a part of it too. But the beautiful thing about San Diego is we have a diverse growing region, and we like the diversity of what we grow. And so there are just certain crops that take more water, and we want that produce. We want those items. So I don't know. It's all probably part of it. We probably just need a lot of everything just to get together, and I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's going to take a lot of effort on all fronts. But there's obviously no one size fits all answer, but great that you guys are thinking about this stuff. So, that's what I was going to say is going back to the stormwater thing. It'd be great if there were things that we could do to increase the water available for agriculture instead of just trying to cut the water we are using. So going back to the first segment, the stormwater, that's really exciting to me. So instead of looking for things to cut, let's look for water that we can add.
Yeah, definitely hear you on that. Thank you, Andy, and just really appreciate your feedback on both those points. And I hear you definitely that there's not a one size fit all answer, and I appreciate you bringing that up because that's a big thing that we're all trying to figure out as well. So it's a lot about collaboration and education. So really do appreciate your time speaking out because it is very valuable. So thank you so much. I think Megan Otto, did you have any feedback for Andy?
Yeah, sorry. Just to mention that we definitely are looking at increasing water available to farmers in terms of accessibility to those potential additional sources. And then also increasing groundwater recharge where it makes sense, recognizing that all farmers don't have access to groundwater, but for those who do, trying to see if we could put in stormwater projects where those basins can be recharged. So it's definitely on the radar. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Megan. I see we have Mary Matava. Hi, Mary.
Hi, Elise. I also would like to bring up that that the contributions that the orchard crops make to carbon sequestration. And I know that the county in their climate action plan and most of the cities have tree planting. And I'd just like to point out that the constraints that have been on agriculture economically have led to the removal of about I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million trees in the past 10 years. And each one of these trees, avocados and citrus, are really, really good carbon sequesters. And so I think we need to keep that in mind too when we talk about agriculture, that there's benefits to climate change. And just looking, I've been a crop advisor for over 40 years in San Diego County. And when I first moved into the area in the late 70s, most of our orchards were not on drip irrigation. And I don't know of any orchards now that are on the old spinners that used to be used for solid set irrigation. And like Janet had mentioned earlier, we've kind of squeezed every single thing that we can get out of water conservation in the orchards that we can get and still be able to produce an economically viable crop. So thank you very much for all of your presentations tonight. It's been really informative.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. Yeah, great to have you. Want to just check in with Megan Otto for any follow-up or any feedback for Mary?
I think part of what we're looking at too is trying to match farmers based on their crop, the scale, the microclimate that they're in to grants opportunities, because we definitely recognize that money is needed for any kind of changes. So really trying to figure out what solutions would be tailored to those specific users, and then pulling in those grant resources and trying to work on some kind of a matching system. So just wanted to throw that out there as well.
Great. Thank you both. Really appreciate it. All right. I see we have Greg Kamen. Go ahead, Greg. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having us. You're doing a great job. Appreciate the attention towards agriculture. I'm a producer as well. And, I had a couple questions and I think it was Janet that said, if you're looking at the 20 to 50 years from now and the course that we're on right now, yeah, we'll be gone. That's the reality, I think. You have to look at that. If profitability isn't there, we have to be concerned about that. As everybody's before me kind of pointed out, we conserve water. Every drop counts to us. We don't waste anything. And is there any maybe consideration about, if everybody's conserving so much, we talk about groundwater recharge, are we going to start affecting that, where irrigation does recharge in a sense? And if we're not recharging those groundwater tables through the irrigation and we're conserving so much, could that end up being a negative effect? Also, on the stormwater, have you guys looked into some of these natural streams that we have that fill up during rain events but are dry all the rest of the time? If we're going to be doing any kind of collection, settling basins to recharge there, have you been working with CEQA, fast tracking, or the state, or Army Corps of Engineers, so to speak, that we can get those projects fast tracked and not have decades of millions of dollars of studies to actually help us? That would be, definitely beneficial to us in the long run, for sure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. Really appreciate that feedback and those questions as well. I want to make sure that we get you the information you're looking for. And just to start to kick it off, I'm going to hand it to Megan to address one of your questions for the second assessment.
In terms of the permitting, we haven't entered that phase yet. We're looking more at a higher level in terms of prioritization to get kind of the most bang for the buck per se, in terms of looking for opportunities. But we have not entered into the permitting phase. But do hear you on how long permitting takes. So are planning for that. Yes.
I just wanted to add something I actually heard at a water summit last week, and one of our water managers in Southern California mentioned that the current regulations that we're working under for different water quality standards, the permitting, the CEQA, everything that you just mentioned, may be impacting the overall water affordability with what they have to enforce and how long it takes for us to build these projects and the studies that must be done. So I know that our water managers are working to try and expedite those. But yes, our company works through the CEQA process, and it could be very lengthy and very time consuming. So if there would be a way for some of these projects that are really needed to have an expedited permitting opportunity, that's a great idea, and something that I think we can keep in mind as we're developing some recommendations moving forward for different agencies.
Yeah, thank you both for that. And just to circle back, we really do appreciate everyone's feedback on this, and want to share a little more that this overall effort is very high level. But what's great about it is it's the first steps to start these conversations for finding more opportunities for a lot of these concerns. Agriculture is a component that is very important, very big in this project, as well as the other two that we're exploring. And then also water itself is a very big resource, has a lot of different concerns going on. So what's really great about this overall assessment is having your voice as a part of it now. So having everyone's input as early as possible in these stages helps for the next steps and crafting the next components to build policy and the decisions and the types of pathways that we can make those types of improvements moving forward. So keep us in mind as we start to process the end of this overall effort. And we are at time, but what I want to do is transition into next steps just really quickly, because we just appreciate everyone's insight and feedback. Want to let you know what some of those next steps are and how we can stay in touch. And overall, as I mentioned, the process of this is we're coming to the end of the reporting process. We received that first draft. So we're going to be going to the board in March of 2024. But in order to prepare for that board hearing, we're going to be doing individual report reviews, which means that we can sit down with you in a more individual meeting and have these one-on-one discussions with you as an individual or as a group. We're scheduling these now until December. So please reach out to me if you're interested in scheduling one of these review sessions. We'd be happy to go through the report with you, more step-by-step detail. Also, we'll be putting this into public comment phase, which will be beginning in December. So this will be on our engagement portal, which will be updated on our website, which I'll share here in just a moment. But again, there's multiple opportunities to stay in touch with us and stay informed on this overall effort. And then finally, that'll lead up to the March 2024 hearing. So at this time, thank you so much for spending an extra 2 minutes with us. We really appreciate it, as I've mentioned, but this is such a valuable time for us and valuable insight to have your feedback. And I just want to share with all of you my contact information. If there was anything that you want a little more clarity on, you want to schedule a review session with our team, with the consulting team and myself and the project team to go over the report, please feel free to reach out to me. Also, you can stay in touch with us on the website. The Regional Water Equity Effort is going to be updated on the website with some resources to prepare for public comment and to stay in touch with us for other things coming up and keep updated. So again, I'll let you all go. I hope you have a wonderful night, and thank you again for spending your evening with us. And please be in touch. Thank you all so much.